What's up, Purdue fans, and welcome to another episode of Boiler Banter. I am Brandon Brown, joined as always by Dustin Schutte. And Dustin, it's fair to say that we're kind of entering into a slow part of the calendar. March Madness is now completely behind us. The Florida Gators are the national champions, so college basketball is officially wrapped up. Obviously, the portal is still the portal, and spring football is going on. But this is definitely like a slower time of the year as we start to get into April and May, and then certainly into the summer. But that doesn't mean we're going to go away completely. It just means the episodes are probably going to be a little shorter. I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that. We could take a little breather after all the hard work we put in during basketball season.
No doubt, no doubt. So the last time we were on, we had talked about Purdue hitting the transfer portal a little bit, and one of the main targets that they had was in town for a visit. I believe on the day we were talking, or maybe he was coming the next day. That was Oscar Cluff, the big man from South Dakota State. And then I think within 24 hours of us talking about him and breaking down his game and kind of looking at how he might fit, he ended up committing to Purdue. So that's pretty obviously a big target that they had. They put some effort in. They brought him onto campus, and now he's in the fold. Just let's revisit that since it did. I'm pretty sure it literally happened on the day we talked about it. So even though it's a little bit old news now at this point, we haven't had a chance to discuss it yet. So Oscar Cluff is now on the Purdue basketball team.
Yeah, and from the sound of it, he was their number one target in the transfer portal. So, and he was one of the top 5 guys, I think, in the portal, depending on which recruiting site you looked at. But that was a huge pickup because obviously the biggest issues for Purdue last season were really on the defensive end. They lacked rim protection. And then on the offensive side, on the defensive end, they struggled to rebound the basketball as well. And in the offensive side, just the inability to get offensive rebounds at times. And this is a guy that averaged over 17 points, 12 rebounds a game. Now, albeit that's at South Dakota State. The previous season, he was at Washington State, where I think he averaged around like 7 and maybe 4, something in that neighborhood. So we'll see what he's able to do against the Big Ten. But I think the thing you like if you're a Purdue fan is he brings that he can beat you in a number of ways. So first of all, the thing that stood out to me was, and this is watching, 3 or 4 or 5-minute clips of him on YouTube that have been posted during his time basically at South Dakota State. What stood out to me was he is I don't want to say stereotypical Purdue big man, but Purdue's bigs have been able to pass the ball really well. They're really good guys at finding the open shooter or finding guys on cuts or their dives. And you look back to Travion Williams, Zach Edey, Trey Kaufman-Renn, those guys all averaged above 2 assists per game. He averaged 2.2, and it's not like those are just slop, like somebody's lapsing defensively. Like he finds cutters. He's got really good vision for a big man. But his bread and butter, it appears, is going to be back to the basket, kind of back you down, get the ball in the low post, beat you to your spot, put on a move or two. And if I don't make the first shot, I'm going to get the rebound and hit the second one. Like he was the number 2 player in total rebounds and the number 2 player in offensive rebounds. And when you join a team that struggled in that category, that's going to be a huge benefit to them. Now, I think where there's going to be some question marks is, he's 6'11", but what does he bring on the defensive end? I don't know. That's going to be, I think, maybe the biggest question mark of his game. But the one saving grace for Purdue is you get back 7'4" center Daniel Jacobson, who was injured in the second game of the season. So Purdue will have at times some semblance of rim protection, whether they get it from Cluff, Daniel Jacobson, or maybe they get it from both guys. But having that true shot blocker, it's going to be interesting to me to see how those two, whether they're on the court at the same time. I don't think that's going to happen. It's probably going to be one or the other. But who wins that starting spot, that 5 starting spot? But regardless, Purdue's going to have a really good starting center in either Cluff or Jacobson, and they're going to have a really good reserve player at center. And they just didn't have that this past season.
I was going to go, that's exactly where I was going to go next. I mean, you mentioned him being probably their top target in the transfer portal, and he was rated quite highly across the board. But coming from South Dakota State, you do wonder about that jump in competition. Yeah. And the fact that it sounds crazy to say, the fact that he's undersized at 6'11", but compared to Purdue centers of the past, he's not typically what they've had. But he is bigger than Trey Kaufman-Renn. But basketball players come in all shapes and sizes. I guess my question is, do you think he's is he a starting caliber kind of guy in the Big Ten, or do you think because Jacobson's there, he's got that traditional monstrous size that Purdue likes to trot out there? Like, how do you really think it would shake out, just knowing what you know a little bit now after a week here?
Yeah, it's to me, that's going to be a question that's up in the air. I think this guy is going to I think he'll get starter minutes. I think he's a guy that will probably give you 18 to 20 minutes per game, because I think not only can he play that center position, but he can also play that. I'm going to guess they can play him at the 4 position. So if Trey Kaufman-Renn needs 5 minutes break, I'm guessing Oscar Cluff is going to fill that 5 minutes, right? And so that's why I say you might see Jacobson and Cluff on the floor at the same time at times, even though I don't think Trey Kaufman-Renn's going to get a lot of breathers next season. Like Matt Painter likes to play those guys as much as he can before you get that drop in production. So to me, it kind of depends on what you value. I think, and this is a very small sample size, right? Like we saw Daniel Jacobson play in one game, but in that one game, and I know it's against Texas A&M Corpus Christi, he had 13 points, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks, and I think he scored 6 points like late in that game when it was, I won't say it was in question, but it was like an 8 to 9 point game. And then he was able to get a couple buckets and kind of ice the deal. Like he looked college ready in his first college game. Even though he was injured, he was warming up with the team and in late February and then early March and into March Madness. He worked out. He looks like he's a little bit thicker. So to me, it may be kind of a situation of what do you value more? What does Purdue need more? Do they need that rim protection? Do they need that guy on the defensive end? Because if that's the case, then I think they'll probably go Jacobson. If they value Cluff's offensive style and what he brings and his ability to rebound the basketball, then I think they'll go his direction. I don't like, to me, it's 1A and 1B. Like, I don't know that there's a wrong option here. You may even see situations where maybe it becomes matchup dependent. If they don't see a lot of drop off between the two, if they feel like in certain games they need Cluff's offense and in other games they need, like Michigan State, if they had Daniel Jacobson on the floor, I'm not saying they win, but Michigan State isn't getting 11 dunks, I don't think, right? Like I think he can at least provide some level of resistance there. So I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting. This is why that summer is going to be really interesting to me, because they've got 2 really good prospects. And I think both of them will see adequate time, because I think that they're just going to continue to rotate. Like I said, Jacobson, Cluff, and Kaufman-Renn between the 4 and 5. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how that position develops, how that battle goes. But 3 really good options in that, to me, and this will kind of bleed over into the next topic that we're going to talk about, is why Purdue is one of the preseason favorites to win the national championship next season.
Perfect segue. That's exactly where we're going next. That you start to look at the way the roster is coming together. Braden Smith back, Trey Kaufman-Renn back, Fletcher Lawyer also back, correct?
Yep.
And then now you add in Cluff, and you've got Jacobson returning from the injury, and that's pretty formidable. I mean, you've got the Big Ten Player of the Year. I think you said it before. If Braden Smith wasn't on the team, Trey Kaufman-Renn might have been the Big Ten Player of the Year, or at least been in the discussion. So you've got a really versatile, experienced, talented lineup coming back. It was a team that was picked to win the Big Ten this year. They fell a little short of that, but then made a nice run in the tournament. I guess, yeah. What is the early outlook for the team? I think you said before we started recording, some places have them in the top 2 or 3, others a little lower than that. But this does look like a team that's going to be one of the best in the Big Ten for sure, and maybe one of the best in the country.
So it seems like the consensus among most places is Purdue is the number 2 team. Most news outlets have Purdue projected as the number 2 team in their way too early predictions. And obviously there's still a lot of transfer portal. There's still a lot of NBA draft situations that arise. So we may not have a good idea of what the roster looks like for another month, maybe. I'm not sure what that NBA deadline is, but nevertheless, when you look at what Purdue has coming back, there's one 24/7 Sports has them at number 9, On 3 at 12. I think that's a little low. The Athletic has them at number 1. So they're kind of all over the board here. I think the expectation is, once again, much like it was this past season, is, I hate saying Final Four or bust, because the NCAA tournament can be such a crapshoot. But when you look at what they have coming back, the fact that they do get a 7'4" guy with rim protection and a guy who can block shots back, when you get the number 1 guy from the transfer portal, you get the Big Ten Player of the Year coming back, another guy who may be the Big Ten Player of the Year in Trey Kaufman-Renn, and a sharpshooter like Fletcher Lawyer. Oh, by the way, we've got CJ Cox and Jakari Harris sitting there on the bench. It's hard for me to believe that this team won't be in competition for the Big Ten regular season title. And then if they take care of business and they can get a number 1 seed, I've already done the math on this. Like the first 2 rounds are in St. Louis, the Midwest regionals in Chicago, the Final Fours in Indianapolis. They could potentially go through the entire tournament not having to travel more than 270 miles outside of West Lafayette and Mackey Arena to get to the Final Four and get to a national championship. So I think there's a lot of optimism. I think that they still have a lot of questions, right? Like automatically adding players doesn't mean you're going to be a better rebounding team. You're going to be a better defensive team. But I think that the thought that you have a bigger body, 2 bigger bodies basically joining the roster in 2025-26, assuming that you have the best point guard in college basketball coming back and some sharpshooters on the team with Fletcher Lawyer and CJ Cox. Now, don't get me wrong, guys like Camden Heide and Miles Colvin, I think hurt you a little bit just because of what they brought defensively and their effort-wise and their ability to stretch the floor a little bit and provide some spacing. But I think with another year under the belt, I think Jakari Harris, Antoine West, the freshman who's coming in, and CJ Cox can kind of fill that void. So there's going to be, I think if you asked anybody around West Lafayette, the staff, the players included, once they get through summer workouts, they'll say, if we don't make the Final Four, it's a disappointing season. So that would be my expectation. But again, the tournament can be crazy. It's so matchup dependent that, or you have one bad shooting night, one bad defensive effort, and it could be the end of your season. So, but I think that without question, this team is going to be the favorite to win the Big Ten. And I think it would be 1,000% disappointing if they didn't win the Big Ten next season. And again, we'll see what other teams, Michigan's a team that's up there. Michigan State had a great season. We'll see what the transfer portal does. We'll see what the NBA draft does. But right now, as it stands, I would put Purdue as the favorite to win the Big Ten and get to the Final Four.
So there you have it. Go place your bets. Dustin Schutte says that Purdue is winning the entire thing on April 8th, 2025. A couple house cleaning things here. April 26th is the date to declare for so just over 2 weeks. The NBA draft declaration deadline. That's a mouthful there. But yeah, so we'll know a little bit more about. I think it feels safe to say with Purdue's guys, right, that they're going to be back. But I mean, they're doing their due diligence, right?
Well, so that's what I would say. Right now, there's been no report, but this should be the yearly reminder that I put out that you will probably see. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I would assume that Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Renn, maybe Fletcher, I don't know. I would assume that at least 2, maybe 3 of those guys are going to put their name in the NBA draft to get an evaluation. If it comes back super positive, then maybe they go to the NBA. The latest draft I saw, Trey Kaufman-Renn's name is not mentioned. Braden Smith was selected as like a late second rounder, the 58th pick by ESPN. So this is not the one thing, but this is one of the benefits of NIL, where if you get a low draft projection, you come back, you can still make money, right? You don't have to automatically declare and risk injury and stuff. Like you can still make money. So if you see them declare for the NBA draft, don't panic. There's probably going to get an evaluation and then make their final decision, after they get the feedback and what they need to work on to improve their draft stock, basically.
And I wanted to go back and check myself a little bit. Did I say Fletcher or Foster? Because my Michigan State.
I think you did. Yeah, I think you said Fletcher. Yeah, I think you got it right.
Okay, my Michigan State and Michigan coverage of the past may have creeped in there a little bit, but yes, Fletcher Lawyer, the slightly taller, slightly more impactful lawyer brother. Yeah, a big part of what they did this past year, and man, what a deal to get those 3 guys back if they all do in fact return. Yeah. I mean, tons of experience, tons of playing time, high level stuff, lots of great coaching from Matt Painter over the last couple of years, and like you said, kind of puts Purdue in the driver's seat for the Big Ten, you would think. I mean, you mentioned Michigan State. I think just today, maybe it was. I think Jace Richardson from Michigan State announced that he's going to the NBA. I think that'll probably stick. That's not a let me test the waters type of thing. And then with Michigan, who was also at the top of the Big Ten, they've got some phenomenal transfer additions, but a couple of them are also testing the NBA waters. So yeah, there's some things to figure out. Danny Wolf has a decision to make still. So yeah, there's going to be some battles at the top of the Big Ten with a lot of the same teams that were there this year.
And Maryland hiring Buzz Williams
Yeah.
and they just got Miles Rice, and Pharrell Payne followed him. And I can't remember if they got somebody. Derek Queen obviously is going to go to the NBA. He's going to be a lottery pick, but that's going to be a team. I really like Buzz Williams. I think he's a really good coach. I don't know if they're going to be Big Ten contenders in his first year, but that's a team that could be sneaky good as well. In Illinois, Brad Underwood seems to have that as much as he says he hates it. Like they seem to rebuild every year. Now they haven't been in contention for a Big Ten regular season title in a few years, but they're usually near that, top 3 or 4 spots.
You just reminded me. That's the Morez Johnson from Illinois went to Michigan. So
Michigan
did some work in the portal. Obviously, Purdue did some work in the portal, and Michigan State, and Izzo, they'll probably be there. They usually are. He manages to figure that out a little bit. So, yeah, really exciting stuff. A lot of and there'll probably be somebody's jump up and surprise, because that seems to happen every year too. So, we'll see what that looks like. But Purdue's certainly poised with the way its roster is coming together to have a great run when the next basketball season tips off. All right, let's close it out with a little spring football. Maybe not the hottest topic in all of West Lafayette, but it is going on, and football is closer to us than basketball. So let's do a little bit of discussion there. There's some semblance of a spring game coming up, I believe. I think you'll get into that and break that down a little bit. Kind of strange. A lot of programs are canceling the spring game or doing things a little differently now for various reasons. And then also the quarterback situation. I think it was discussed here recently as spring football is going on at Purdue. What's the latest on the football field?
Yeah, so just as a reminder, they're going to change some things up. They from a traditional spring game, and I'm going to hit on this just real quickly too. So they changed it up from a spring game to a spring showcase. Barry Odom basically said, there's going to be some practice elements, and then there's going to be some live scrimmage elements. So there will still be that semblance, but traditionally Purdue has done a 4-quarter, whatever, boiler up, hammer down, black, gold, whatever you want to call it, team for the spring game, but that's not going to be the case this year. And the way he kind of phrased it caught my attention, Brandon, because he said, if we don't do this the way I want to do it, we're not going to hit rep counts that I need to hit. And to me, that says we need to practice a lot more before we're ready for Big Ten football. And so that I found that pretty interesting. The other thing is, you mentioned the quarterbacks. Now, Purdue brought in Malachi Singleton from Arkansas, E.J. Colson from UCF, and Evans Chuba from Washington State. They had Bennett Meredith still on the roster from last season who stuck around. So they've got 4 quarterbacks who are kind of battling right now for that number 1 job. And, this was just, I think, last week, or maybe over the weekend, actually, during their scrimmage, was basically the message was all 4 of those guys have progressed and we like certain things they can do. Now, can they go out and win us a Big Ten football game? I don't know. And so that's, to me, it's like, okay, is that a real concern? Do you have 4 guys on the roster and you're not sure that you can win with any of them? Or is that a coach, doing the Nick Saban thing where we got to get a lot better, even though you've got, 3 guys that can maybe get after it and be just fine. I don't know how much to read into it. Obviously, Barry's new to West Lafayette and new to the program, so you don't know how to kind of read through that stuff just yet. But so I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on kind of the quarterback situation in West Lafayette. And the other factor is they really just didn't have enough bodies. He talked about the offensive line. They got to need more bodies. They weren't able to maybe get through some of the stuff that they wanted to get through in terms of spring, in terms of rep count, just because so many people left through the portal because recruiting was such a mess, as is the case. So they're going to hit the spring portal hard. And so that's been a focus. They'll reevaluate, obviously, after the spring showcase and see what's going on. But don't be surprised if there's a lot more names added to the roster. And since we missed out on this news, since we missed out on the Oscar Cluff news last week, I'll go ahead and quote unquote break some news. So Purdue did just flip 2026 quarterback Corin Berry from Boston College, previously committed. So good sign there that looks like he's a 3-star prospect. This is just a brief overview. 6'2", 185 out of California. So there is some good news on the recruiting front for Purdue football that they were able to flip a quarterback commit. Now there's a lot of time between now and then. Maybe he'll reopen his recruitment. Maybe he'll change his mind. I don't know. But since we missed the Cluff news last week and we had to backtrack, I thought I'd throw that tidbit in here and have a little bit of news for us this week.
Well, there you go. And look, I think the quarterback stuff it could be so many things. I mean, like you said, is it a Saban thing? You're just trying to motivate your guys knowing you got studs. I'm not, we're not comparing the Alabama quarterback situation to the Purdue quarterback situation, but the premise I understand. Or is it well, if you've got 4 quarterbacks, you don't really have any. Like there's that old adage, or it's just April. It's spring ball. He's trying to motivate his guys. He's new. He's lighting a fire. I mean, there's so many reasons he could have said what he said.
And the other thing I'll add to that is it's interesting to me when you have that situation. He talked about, I think before spring started or maybe the first day of spring practice, basically they were going to give all 4 of those guys equal reps. So part of this may also be if you can't really get into a rhythm because you're splitting reps, splitting time, getting, if you're spending a quarter of your time with the ones, a quarter of your time with the third of your time with the ones, twos, and then threes, and you're kind of doing that rotation, it may be hard to kind of get into that rhythm. So there could be some of that going on too, but it's going to be interesting if they come out of spring with a guy or 2 who are the favorites to land the job. But right now it just doesn't it sounds like all 4 guys are in the mix, but again, he could be just playing it close to the vest, not wanting to let too much out. And part of this too is retention, right? You probably, when you have a deep quarterback room, you want to make sure that you think all 4 guys are in the race because you don't maybe want a couple of them to transfer out. So that could be part of it too. There could be, these guys are a lot smarter than we think. So there could be a lot of different, it could be anywhere from we don't like any of the 4 guys we have on our roster, or we love them all and we don't want anybody to transfer. I don't know. So it's kind of a mystery right now, but I'm thinking we'll find at least something out during the spring game.
That is actually a phenomenal point. If Barry Odom names a starter today, 3 guys could leave tomorrow. I mean, exactly. Like that's how it probably might go. I mean, so coaches have to tread lightly way more than they ever did in the past. I mean, quarterback's always been kind of the one position because you only get one plays. So quarterbacks have always been a little more transfer happy, I think. But now it's the Wild West out there. We all know that. And so, yeah, you have to choose your words wisely. I want to get you out of here on this because I'm actually a little bit curious myself. Quick synopsis, quick thought. You mentioned it. He's new. Thoughts on Barry Odom? Just, as a coach, like, what his vibe is like and what expectations might be at a place like Purdue where, that's you're playing second. About to sneeze. Think I could
take this break.
maybe cut that out. Maybe leave it in for the organic quality. I don't know. Anyway, Purdue football is going to play second fiddle to Purdue basketball. It can be a tough place to win, but there's been success there in the past. I guess thoughts on Barry Odom, as he's working his way into year 1.
Yeah, I think more than anything, he's a complete 180 from what they had in Ryan Walters. And that's not a slight to Ryan Walters. He's just a different guy. And I think you have to have a different kind of mentality. This is a guy who at Missouri, he failed. And I don't know, that doesn't mean he was a terrible coach. It just didn't work out for him at his alma mater. And then he went to UNLV and had tremendous success. And now he's coming to Purdue. I think you have that experience knowing what it takes. He seems to be a very personable guy. He seems to know what it takes to get it done. I will say I was at the basketball game when, he said, we're going to win now and we're going to win big. So he has high expectations. The thing I think Purdue fans need to remember, and sometimes we can get carried away in the college football playoff era and with 12 teams. Purdue doesn't need to have the type of season that Indiana had. He doesn't need to be Kurt Signetti where they go 11-1 and they're if you can win 6 games, especially with the schedule, and you can get to a bowl game, that's a huge success. If you can keep Purdue between, 6 to 9 wins every season, and then maybe once every 5 or 6 years, you're in contention for one of those playoff spots, you're going to get fans to fill up Ross-Ade Stadium. They want an exciting brand of football. I think he understands that. He's really embraced himself in the community. They just had Gene Katie at practice the other day. He's been to a lot of men's basketball games. I know that he traveled to Indianapolis. So he's fully immersed in trying to do things the Purdue way. And I think just Ryan Walters just wasn't a good cultural fit in that same regard. And I think Barry Odom kind of understands what it takes to win at a place like Purdue. And I think he's going to be a good fit. I don't know what the expectation is, but look, after 1-11, And when you look at the schedule and what the roster is assembled, I would say 4 to 5 wins is a successful, if you can stay competitive. If you're getting blown out by 40 points every game like they were last year, that's not a good sign, obviously. But if you can get to 4 or 5 wins and you're competitive in a majority of your games, that's a good sign for this program. So I would put that as the expectation, and then we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. But I think in terms of like a culture fit, I think Barry Odom fits the bill just about as good as anyone.
There you have it. He's 48 years old. He brings a winning record with him to West Lafayette. I mean, sometimes sometimes guys don't even have a winning record. You're like, how did that guy get a new job? Like, I don't understand. He's above 500. He hasn't won a bowl game yet. I mean, that would be I think a big step in the right direction if he can do that at Purdue within a couple of years. And yeah, look, I mean, you never know. I mean, a culture change can fix a lot of things, and if that's what he brings, then that would be a good thing for Purdue. He had, like you said, I mean, UNLV is not an easy place to win, and he did that there.
No.
So,
yep.
Hopes I would assume hopes would be high, and that only can go up, I guess, from 1-11. I mean, good Lord, you hope he doesn't go over in his first year, and I doubt that he will. But there you have it. He is Dustin Schutte. I am Brandon Brown. Little Purdue basketball, little transfer portal, little looking ahead to next year, and obviously taking a look at spring football as it is underway. Dustin, thanks so much for the time, man. We'll be back next week.
Thanks, Brandon.